what's going on in the insurance world. And I was like, I have to have these ladies on. Let's talk to our audience, to our buyers, to our sellers. What are the pitfalls? What should we be looking for? What's going on? But before we get started, Vanessa, tell us a little bit about your company, how everything got started, and just, a little bit about you guys.
Sure. So in 2010, I decided to leave a national broker and start my own agency. We started with zero and just myself doing all of the networking, servicing, A to Z. In 2014, May of 2014, we brought Courtney on as a salesperson, and she's been with us going into her 11th year. And since then, we are probably 13 to 16 clients, depending on employees, depending on the day. But we have 2 locations. One in Sugar Land and one in the Woodlands, and we are just growing and passionate about what we do.
Oh, you're muted.
I just checked that I'm having some technical difficulties here, and unfortunately, this is going live to a different page, not the Facebook. It's going to LinkedIn. So are you guys okay with that?
I'm good.
Sure. So let's start from the beginning. You guys, welcome to our LinkedIn page. I'm Claudia Da Silva, your favorite red hair realtor. And I thought I was broadcasting on my Facebook page, but that's okay because we're going to have this video there just shortly. So Courtney, tell us a little bit about you. When did you join the Kimball Group, and a little bit more about what you do?
Excellent. I've been here for 10 years now, and I really focus on bringing in clients, educating them on what they're getting and why, what they need, making those recommendations, and really holding their hand and getting them started in the insurance process with us so that they get used to having someone that is being more proactive with them and educating them and recommending things to them versus just, a lot of times going online and just clicking and choosing and not really understanding what everything is. So I'm here to be that trusted resource and lead them into our agency and guide them in terms of getting insurance going.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I've been working with you for so long. Actually, you're very approachable as far as explaining what insurance is in a way that I understand, because I'm not an insurance guru, right? So I don't know what things are like. Me, as well as a home buyer and seller, I had to understand what deductibles were. How does that affect me? What are premiums? What is an umbrella policy? I mean, all this stuff that I cannot wait for you guys to explain. But Vanessa, you had explained that you used to work for, a different company, and you decided to open your own. And so you are basically an insurance broker. Can you explain a little bit more in detail for those that don't know what that is, what it means?
So we're an independent agency. We represent multiple carriers. So as your lifestyle changes, we have markets that will protect you as your lifestyle changes. We, from the first time homeowner buyer, we're passionate about making sure they understand what coverages are and how to use your policy, your deductibles and things like that to your multi-million-dollar home. So we have experience with agents in our agency from first-time homeowner buyers to multi-million-dollar homes. And we have the markets for those. We have multiple carriers that will take care of your $1 million plus homes, and then anything under that. And depending on the client and where their needs are and what their asset protection needs are is where we place them.
Perfect. So let's get to it. I mean, everything is changing. Like, there's so many changings in the real estate industry right now. Climate change as well. What should we as buyers be looking for as far as insurance? What are the main concerns for home buyers?
Courtney, I'll go ahead and let you get started with that.
All right. So I know a lot of home buyers, when they first get started, they're looking for price and what is going to make most sense from them from a pricing perspective. And a lot of people I've noticed, they get very caught up in only focusing on that, when obviously we want everything to be as cost effective as possible. But really, we need to be making sure that we have the coverage that needs to be in place, because otherwise insurance is really just an expensive piece of paper. And obviously you don't want to pay for this expensive piece of paper and then never be able to use it. So that's where we come in, and making sure that we're making those recommendations that say, if you have a pipe burst, we want to make sure that you can take care of that. If a tree falls on your house, we want to make sure that that policy is going to take care of that. If it floods, if all the things that could happen or that we've seen happen, we want to make sure those things are there. And so if you just look at a policy at face value and just say, oh, it's this much money and it's cheaper, so I'm going with that. Well, that doesn't mean that it has all of the same coverages. And it could come down to where, when in the time of need, you either weren't prepared for what your deductible was, or you didn't review your policy, and then those coverages aren't there. So that's one of the things that we really want to take a look at with our customers, to make sure that they have all of those things. And that, water damage, water backup, replacement cost coverage, reasonable deductibles, and like I said, holding their hand along the way to help them with that.
Yeah, and to add to what Courtney says, we're more of a boutique, I guess you can say, whereas we're educating along the way. We're not just going to cookie cutter quote, because not everybody is a cookie cutter client. And so you may choose to not put your money in your home. You may save your money, or you may have your money invested. And so you could have someone with the same profile, but their spending is different. And so we dig deep. We want to make sure that you have the asset protection that you need. And we talk to you. We try to understand you as a person, and not just a cookie cutter, plug out a homeowner's quote and move on. We want the whole asset protection. We look at your drivers in your household. We look at umbrella coverage. We talk about, what's happening in the future. Are you going to have a young driver coming on board in the near future? So let's talk about it. But it doesn't just stop there with the agency. We have our sales team who are dedicated and focused on bringing clients on the right way. Once we have the clients in our agency, the insureds, we have a dedicated account manager. So once you are at renewal, you have someone that you have a relationship with. They get to know you year after year, talk to you, what's happening. No, we don't want to move you right now because you have a young driver coming on in 6 months. So you need that longevity credit. Are you planning on selling your home in the near future? And if you are, let's just wait to make that move until your lifestyle changes. And then, of course, we have the sales team who originally onboarded the client who's here. They'll talk to if the account manager says, hey, I need a little more information about this person, they collaborate. So we're not just separate. We don't just say, okay, you only do sales and you only do service. We collaborate on that client if there's something that's happening. And we're really big on that as a team, where we talk about things. Hey, I'm struggling with this. Where would you go with this? So I really pride myself in our team being a team.
Absolutely. And again, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for me as a professional that helps people get into homes to have partners like you guys, to have vendors and people in my team. I consider you part of my team because you help all of our buyers and sometimes sellers, get the deals done. And right now, so much is changing. You guys are up to date. It's so nice to be able to talk to you, to a real person, and not just call to a number where you don't know who you're going to talk. And if you're going to talk to that person 2 times on a row, you may never talk to the same person you talked when you first called. Mm-hmm. So it's all of those things help. I also have been sending my letters to all of my database that it's time to review your policy. So if you're watching this video and you follow me, you probably got a letter in the mail saying that it's time to review your policy. And the Kimball Group is one of the teams that can get that done. They can review our policy. That's how I started with Courtney. She would offer, let me review the policy. Let me see what you have and how can I better advise. And what I really liked about her was how honest the group is. Mm-hmm. The team is. Claudia, we might not find you something cheaper, but we will find you something that gives you more coverage. And what do you need to be looking into? We also had some sellers that had some difficulty because of the age of their roofs, and the Kimball Group was able to find solutions. I was able to get things done, and it was, oh, well, I can't help you. We're not going to do that. It's like we always had someone that we could discuss it and find solutions for our clients. So Vanessa, you touched on a very good point. A lot of people have been asking me this. Actually, all the buyers you helped are very happy with you guys, because you mentioned something that is an umbrella policy. What is an umbrella policy? Who can benefit from it? How can one qualify for it?
So it's an extra layer of liability protection. So say you have a car accident, things happen. We've got multiple claims right now where our clients aren't at fault, but they were hit by an uninsured driver. And so your auto policy is primary for your liability. And so we're looking at uninsured motorist claims because people were injured by someone who was uninsured or not enough insurance. We've got one right now that's about $300,000 in bodily injury for our client being hit by someone that's not insured. On top of that, if you are found negligent, your auto liability policy will be primary, and then you can buy what's called an umbrella or an excess policy. That goes over your home, your cars, and any RVs, motorbikes, anything that you have. It's if you're found negligent in a claim, your primary policy would be your home or your auto, and then you can buy an extra $1 million, $5 million, depending on what your assets are that you want to protect. Especially this is very important if you have young drivers. Young drivers are inexperienced. We see, a lot of rear ends. We see a lot of just things happening in the parking lot. Kids do silly things. Trust me, I know. So you definitely want to make sure you have an extra layer of liability protection, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be responsible for bodily injury of someone. It's $1 million, 2 cars and a home could be about $300 a year, give or take, depending on the carrier and the exposures that you have. But you definitely want to look into that if you don't have an umbrella. If you have a pool, you have teenagers do silly things, slander. You can be sued for anything. And these policies also give you defense coverage. So if the company has to defend you, it's paid for by your policy. If you don't have enough liability coverage, once the company has paid out that coverage, you're on your own to defend yourself.
Okay. And is there like a qualifying, do you have to have a certain credit score, or how does that work?
You have to have underlying liability insurance on your cars of $250,000 bodily injury per person, no more than $500,000. So it's called 250, 500, 100. Once that policy limit is exhausted, then it goes into your umbrella. And your home could be, we require $500,000 in liability in our agency because we want to make sure you have proper coverage. And then your umbrella policy would come over that. So if you have a swim party and somebody gets injured, then that's where your personal liability coverage will come into play.
That's very good. I wanted to mention that because that's something that I want our insurance partners to bring up when they're talking to buyers, because I know it can save them a ton of money. It will definitely have them safer. And so that's something that I really appreciate that you guys bring up and explain how it works. And my clients have all been amazing, because it's like, Claudia, you connected us to get our house insurance, and now they insure my cars as well. I'm like, yeah, I know. That's what we want to do. We want to make sure you're safe. We want to make sure you go in and out, with your car and you're safe, so, and your kids and your family. So right now, there is a lot of changes in insurance. Can you tell the viewers, what have you heard that you know of, and what are you seeing that are the biggest changes that we need to be aware of?
Sure. So, we've seen rate has been the big topic of insurance over the past 2 years. And now carriers are really more looking at the underwriting side of it and really tightening their belt when it comes to that. And so also the big kind of theme that we're seeing is more maintenance. They're wanting to see more pride and ownership. So, just the thing, cleaning off your roof, making sure your gutters are clear. How old is your roof? How old is your hot water heater? are there cracks in your driveway? Just debris or fences, like busted fence posts or not posts, what pickets. They just want to see that you're really taking care of the property, because the better you take care of it, the less likely to have a claim. So also it'll probably end up being more favorably rated in terms of pricing as well. And then of course, if you're in the market to buy or sell, it's going to boost up those numbers too. So maintenance is really the big thing we're seeing. But going along with that, roofs, 15 years old max. Hot water heaters, a lot of carriers are starting to ask that questions, because we do see a lot of hot water heaters busting, leaking, whatever the case may be. So 10 years old on hot water heaters is really where they're going to on that. But if you can get coverage without doing all of these things, all carriers are going to where now they're actually inspecting the property after we issue a policy. And if they find that any of those things are not up to their standards, they will issue a notice to you and give you 30 days to fix that, or you'll get canceled. And then you're back to the drawing board again. So we try to pre-underwrite those things, but if people are doing those things ahead of time, then it saves everybody a little bit of extra work and hopefully some dollars as well.
Absolutely. So I have a house in Florida, and when I had to file for insurance, it was very different than here. I mean, here you call or you have your person and you're done, like you're doing your mortgage and you have, no one comes to your home. In Florida is exactly as you described, and it has been for a very long time now. You actually, consult with one of the companies or, the insurance broker, and they will send someone to your home. It's almost like an inspection. They take pictures of everything. And they also want to see your inspection report. Do you see that? Yes. I had to submit my inspection report, and then they will check everything. They are looking at the main things, indeed, the age of the water heater, the AC, the roof, and the plumbing, and of course the electric, although they did not emphasize as much on the electric panels and things like that, as much as they did the plumbing and, all that stuff. Now, because of the hurricanes, it's going to be the windows. Now, we also have some severe weather once in a while here in Houston. So are you seeing that they are starting to ask for inspection reports? Are these adjusters just coming to the home and check that everything is okay? Are they asking for maintenance proof of things or not yet?
Depending on the carrier, and sometimes yes. We have one carrier that if the roof age is not the same as the year the home was built, we do have to submit some sort of a proof as to when it was last updated. The inspection that the insurance companies do, they will take photos. They are looking, same thing. What does the roof look like? Can they get a photo of the AC unit to see what year it was, installed or whatever, hot water heater. But there have been times to be able to say either, hey, what you came back and told me was not right, or, they were questioning it. We have had to submit proofs of inspections, or even, hey, there was a prior claim. They wanted proof that it had been repaired. And so we either did photos or a copy of the inspection report, or even invoices at times to show that those items had been taken care of.
So we have one client right now where the roof's less than a year old, and they still had to do a home inspection and turn that in to keep the coverage with that carrier. So what you're finding is a couple of years ago, right after the freeze, there were multiple carriers who went insolvent, which meant that they could no longer financially stay stable and continue to operate. And so when that happened, that put a lot of pressure on the existing carriers who are stable. And so they were getting inundated with business because, when you lose a company like that due to insolvency, the agency has 30 days to replace that coverage with another carrier. But the problem is you need to replace that soon, because if you don't, they have no coverage really. And so we were fortunate that we vet the carriers very carefully. We weren't part of that agency issue. But So when that happened, a lot of the companies have reinsurance, which means they have insurance. And they've come in and said, you cannot survive with the rate you're growing, that if we have a catastrophic issue, you're not going to be able to financially be able to sustain it. So then we're going to have to jump in and pay some of this. And so that's when they started putting the brakes on things, and they're gotten very picky because they weren't profitable. And so that's why they're looking for the best of the best, the people who take care of their homes. We have carriers who will come in and say, we're not giving you a quote because this tree hanging over the home. Once they get that cleaned, we can do that. And that's at our quote stage. I've done this 35 years and I've never seen it this way. And so carriers are really, really looking at the best of the best. Do you maintain your property? Or do you have a cracked slab in your driveway that someone can have a liability claim? And so they're wanting you to fix those things. Pride of homeownership, I mean, part of being a homeowner is to take care of your home, which includes your roof. And so we try to tell everybody it's not a maintenance policy, your homeowners, it's for a catastrophic issue. And so we coach along the way with that, and to make sure that you understand it, that just because your roof's 20 years old, it's not the responsibility of the carrier to replace it. It's a homeowner responsibility.
Absolutely. And I think they're also trying to be proactive. The carriers are, like in Florida, that people are not just submitting claims after there is a storm. And, they're trying to be more proactive because, like you said, many of them went out of the business, and there is some that are still at risk that, it is what it is. So I have those conversations now more than ever with buyers and sellers. People have been worried about purchasing a home right now because of the interest rates. My advice to you is don't be concerned about interest rates. You can always refinance later. Be concerned about your insurance. Actually, I had buyers that they could not qualify for the mortgage because of insurance. Because of
seen that happen.
Claims that were made. So let's talk about this. People don't know this. When you file a claim on the home, does it follow the person or the property?
Both. Some carriers look at, it's called subject, and then the home. And so if someone's continually zero claims, we had one prospect, I think they had like 4 0 paid windstorm claims or hail claims, a combination. Well, that just tells the insurance company that there's going to be a claim on that because the roof is not in good condition. It just hadn't been covered yet. And so we need to make sure that you're not just turning a claim. You consult with your agent. And that's what we do. We go through it with them, get an estimate, get someone to look at it, and see if it's under your deductible.
Absolutely. So as a realtor now, when I go with a buyer out there, if it's a resale home, depending where it is, new construction as well. But if it's a resale home, I am now more than ever looking at things that maybe we were not as deeply. We always look into it because we want to make sure someone is safely when they move into a home and the roof is not going to fall on them. And of course, we do inspections. But now, even before we get to that stage, I'm already, making sure. And in my listings, I always share that information. How old is the water heater? How old is the AC? And if the sellers can, I do highly recommend an inspection. We're going to have an inspector in one of our interviews talk about these inspections for sellers before you put it on the market. More important now than ever, because you want to be prepared. If there's something with the home, is going to show up. So why don't you get, hold of it in advance, so you are avoiding hassle further down the line. And the same with the buyers, get all that information. And so when I'm asking you now, like, hey, Courtney, Vanessa, can you guys help this and that person with, it's like, okay, the roof is this age, this is the address, it's not in the flood zone, this is the water heater. So now we have to have more information gathering to help our clients. Someone buying a home for the first time, what do you think that they should be aware when it comes to insurance? Because they have no idea. They don't sometimes know that they can choose their own insurance. They think that automatically the mortgage company hooks them up with somebody and that's it. Buyers can choose their insurance company. That's why we always have you guys to introduce other than the mortgage. So for someone buying a house first time, they don't know anything. What advice do you have for them?
Not all policies are the same.
Okay.
Yes.
Just
Make sure
because.
Go ahead. Make sure
Just
they have the water endorsements, the water endorsements, because the last thing they want to do is get into that house. And especially if they have small kids, kids throw things in the toilet. You get a backup. And if you don't have that coverage, because maybe you're at an area where you only can pay so much for your homeowners to buy that house, don't skimp on the water coverages. We see a lot of water claims, water backup with young kids who put things in the toilet and they flush it and it backs up. And then now you got to change all your baseboards. You've got to dry out the flooring, you've got hardwood floors. You've got to replace them. Just seepage and leakage. There's things that happen behind the walls that you won't know until it happens. And so those are not always covered. You want an open peril policy. So that is basically everything is covered except that the company specifically excludes. If you have a named peril policy that says we're only going to cover these things, and if we don't have it listed, the burden of proof is on you as the client to say where it's covered in that policy. So we don't sell named peril policies here at the agency because of that. We want to make sure that it's got to be specifically excluded.
And think of a peril definition being cause of loss.
Yes.
Okay. So let's continue down this path. I have two more questions for you. Buyers, first time. I love helping buyers for the first time. I feel like when you already own the home, if you didn't know it when you buy it, like me, you learned along the way. So let's focus on that first time home buyer for now. So I'm getting a coverage. What is in the basic coverage? Like, what are we looking at getting coverage? And then explain to us what are deductibles and what do they mean. Can you guys do that?
Great, Courtney.
Okay. I'm going to start with deductibles. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to start with deductibles. Because I think I may have another question for you about your question.
Okay.
Deductibles, and these are actually highly misinterpreted how a deductible works. But think of when you have a claim, usually that when you call us and tell us there's a claim, usually our first question is, or one of the first is, how bad is the damage? How much damage do you have? Because if your damage is less than your deductible, then you're not even going to file a claim with the insurance company. You're just going to take care of it. So a lot of times we want people to be comfortable with what their deductible is. What's comfortable for person A is not always the same that's comfortable for person B in, their financial situation. So you want to take on as much of the risk on your own as you can, because it's going to make your premium lower. So that's obviously a benefit, but the deductible is the threshold of where the insurance company kicks in. So in our area, generally speaking, on the homeowner side, you're going to have a 1% all perils, 2% for wind and hail. That's pretty standard. Most carriers have really gone to that over the past several years. You can get, a few discrepancies depending on the carrier, depending on the zip code, but for most cases, 1% and then 2%. And so you're going to want to make sure that you're prepared for that, because if you've got a $250,000 house, you're on the hook for $5,000 when it comes to wind and hail at 2%. And some people, they're not prepared to do that. So then when we say, well, I'm sorry, it's underneath your deductible, there's really no coverage for you, they freak out. And so that's really one thing people need to be prepared for. But then the other thing is, that's not a $5,000 check that you're going to write to the insurance company. The adjuster is going to come out, they're going to survey the damage. And when they get ready to write you a check, it's going to be minus the deductible. And so then it's your job to actually pay your contractor the total amount, which the insurance company has written you a check for their portion, and then you're on the hook for the rest. So that's the way that the deductibles work. And then the other question you had for me was about the coverages.
So basically when I'm getting home insurance, I'm buying a home, is the dwelling, what else? Is the wind? Yeah. So explain a little bit, some people really just don't know.
Sure. Yeah. So the appraisal value, the purchase price, and the dwelling coverage are generally three different things. Because from the insurance perspective, you want to be insured for the home if it burns down to the ground. The likelihood of that happening isn't always the highest probability, but you want to be insured for 100% of the replacement cost. So if my home burns to the ground, I want it insured for what it would cost to rebuild it exactly the way it was 30 seconds before the fire, or whatever took out my house. And so we use replacement cost estimators that we plug in details of your home. Finishes, features, square footage, etc., are really what we take a look at to get a picture of what's it going to cost in labor, materials to be able to rebuild that home. And then that's what the dwelling value should be. So then not only do you know what it looks like and everything to take into account as you purchase the home, but one thing a lot of people forget is they make renovations and they forget to tell us. And so then they're no longer properly covered. So that's one thing also that needs to be taken into consideration each time someone does a renovation is, hey, did I update my insurance company? Because now I just did this $50,000 renovation to my kitchen. And if something happens to it, it's still insured the way it was before. And so it may not, cover that commercial grade stove that I just put in.
Yeah, and that's the beauty too with us is that we capture that at renewal. So that's one of our questions. Did you make any updates to your home? So if you're not visiting with your agent on your coverages frequently, every year, couple years, then you could be in this situation. But our account managers actually have we call it a pre-call checklist. So they have certain things that they need to ask to make sure that we are keeping up with what's happening with our clients. We're building that lasting relationship. We want them to trust us. And those are the things that if you're not visiting with your agents or you don't think about informing them, you could come up with an issue if there's a claim. Now, if something happens between the time we write you and then we renew, that's a different story. But you definitely want to make sure that as you're enhancing your property, that you're letting your agent know.
That's a really, really good point. I actually don't know a lot of people that think about that. So that's amazing. That's a really good tip for you guys out there. I think as far as my questions, that's it. I just wanted to share with everybody that we do work with people that are physically here in Houston, namely in the Woodlands. They are real people that care for you. So when we connect you, if you're one of my clients, you probably have been in touch with Courtney already. I just wanted people to see you, to get to know you. Now, do you have anything else before you go that you want to share with the public?
I think, just kind of expound a little bit on what Courtney was saying about, the values of the home. We get a lot, well, I can't sell my house for that. Or if I had a loss to my home, I'm not going to rebuild this same size home. So, the insurance companies are looking at where you are today, because if you have a loss, they're obligated according to what's covered on that policy. And what people don't understand, if you go to another agent and they underinsure you, you have what's called a co-insurance penalty. So every policy that has a co-insurance. So you need to know, like if your policy says you have to be insured to 90% of value, or we're going to have a co-insurance penalty. So, and that comes into play if you have a partial loss. So say you have a $10,000 loss and, $100,000 loss with a $10,000 deductible. They're going to say, okay, $100,000 loss, you're underinsured by 10%. So we're going to give you a penalty of 10% for not having enough insurance. Then we're going to take your deductible out. And so a lot of people don't understand that. And, sometimes we hear, oh, well, we added an additional 25% to make up the gap. That's not how insurance works. You have to insure for replacement costs. That extra 25% is right. That if maybe when we had the freeze, it was a hard time getting supplies because of COVID and things like that. So that 25% is a buffer that, they have to put you back with like, kind, and quality. So if those lumber was expensive or flooring was expensive. So that's a buffer that if you can't get what you need to get to replace your home, they have to put you back with like, kind, and quality. So, maybe the next step up is a little more expensive. So don't use that extended replacement cost to fill in the gap to underinsure you. And if you decide that you're not going to build that same size home, then you can negotiate with the insurance company on that at the time of loss. But so many times we come across that, and actually the difference in premium is not normally that much. So don't get so stuck on that. I'm not going to rebuild the same size home. I'm not going to be able to sell my home for this. It's putting you brand new.
Right. Absolutely. That's a really, really good tip.
Yeah, and also if you do that co-insurance, if you don't insure for replacement costs and you have a total loss, you've just cost yourself that 10 or 20% that you underinsured your home on top of your deductible, on top of your penalty. So it's very important to have those candid conversations with your agent of what you actually have in your home and insuring it for replacement costs. That's a huge investment, and you don't want to be underinsured.
Yeah. I think
Absolutely.
my biggest takeaway to buyers, sellers, homeowners, home prospectors, whatever, it is just don't take a policy at face value. Really ask questions, understand what's in it, look at the details versus just the bottom line, because there's so many discrepancies. And I even have people regularly that'll say, well, this is the same company. Why is it $500 cheaper? And I'm like, well, I can't tell you just by you telling me that. I have to like look at it to understand what the differences are. And then, you know, you need to weigh your options on, is that something that I'm willing to do without? And so really that, I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to insurance is don't just look at the price, because it's not, you know, Vanessa and I could quote the same person and still make possibly different recommendations, which would lead to a different price. And even if they are with the same carrier, they could lead to a different price. So it's just a matter of studying what you have versus just like blowing past it and just, oh, it's this much money.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good takeaway for us to wrap up this session is that don't take it at face value. Make sure you're talking to the right people that have your best interest at heart, the realtor, the insurance agent, your mortgage person. That's what you get when you work with us, because everyone involved in the process. And you guys actually know a lot of the lenders I work with, such as D. Carter and other people. And that's what I want. I want a team that cares for the client as much as I do. So thank you so much for being here today, Vanessa and Courtney. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having us, Claudia.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Guys, if you have any questions, let me know. Please do come back to our page to see when it's the next session. And if you have any questions, just reach out. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
See ya.
You guys don't have to